Gang, this is Hexy. So, some of y'all know that I sort of novicely dabble around with painting minis. I'm not really much of a tabletop player like all my buddies, Wardrobe, McMurray, Not Jay, and Mini Warmutt. Those guys, that's especially McMurray and Not Jay and Mutt. That's their thing is miniatures and tabletop miniatures. And then old Wardrobe Todd, he does sort of both sides of the house, hex and counter like me, and then he paints. He's been, and of course he and I right now are both actually starting to paint. Well, me definitely more than normal, and Todd, he's really getting into it too. But it's because of speed paints. So I messed around the other night with some World War II figures, 15 mil Flames of War stuff, and the guys got me some good basing instructions. And they had sent me some good basing material, so it helps out. But what I thought I would do was maybe show you how I accomplished some uniform colors for World War II, for Wehrmacht, and for some paratroopers, for U.S. paratroopers, using just the speed paints. So, like I say, this is not any form of perfection, but, I think it's pretty good for somebody that doesn't necessarily do this. So, obviously, you're going to prime the stuff white. All right, that's the recommendation. And then you'll work over top of the white. Now, what I did was to get the German sort of all the multiple versions of Feldgrau they had, I got what I wanted. And what I got was with these guys right here, all right, I've got some green gray, I've got some blue gray going on here. And what I did was I'll show you the colors in a minute, but I started with a white primer, then I used a gray Speed Painter base coat, and then I dabbled with the greens, two of the greens and the blues they got. And then the other stuff is just black and hardened leather and I think it's called Gollum Sand. Of course, the Crusader skin. Nothing too fancy. All right. So those are the Germans. Let's take a look at one or two of the. Well, here's a Panzer Schreck guy that I put together. I'm sure that color's not right, but same setup there, using the white primer and then their gray base, which I'll go over in a minute, and then using the blues and the greens to get the colors, a little differently for each different uniform. Nothing, like I say, you're never going to get it perfect, but I think the stuff looks pretty good. And then my U.S. paratroopers, which these guys here I used to get some greens. I used the different greens, of course, with a white primer behind it. And another thing that I'll tell you is this isn't one of them, but to get a khaki color, I'll show you the color you can use to get a khaki color straight over top of a white primer. So I think I did these 3 stands probably total. And, of course, I'm a rookie at this stuff. Maybe a couple hours. Now, here's what I used. So white primer, whatever you can get, spray primer's better, right? But then I based the Germans with Gravelord Gray. Just one swipe. Got them all done. Let that stuff dry for a little bit. And then to create the blue sort of version of the Feldgrau, I went over it once or twice with Runic Gray. And that gave me sort of the blue version of the Feldgrau, which, the field gray, which you would see in some of their uniforms. A lot of the movies you'll see them having that. But sometimes they would have like a greener tint or a greener smock. So I used 2 different versions of the green over top of the gray. I used the camo cloak and the malignant green, depending on whether I wanted it lighter or darker. And that created some of the green tint on the Feldgrau uniforms. Now, to get the just straight khaki, for I think it's McMurray tells me the 101st jumped into Normandy wearing their khaki uniform. So it's just a white primer and then pallid bone. Just go over the uniform with pallid bone and believe me, you're going to get a nice khaki look on those uniforms. And then, of course, you can take your hardened leather and the Gollum Sand and stuff and what is it called? Dark wood or something like that, whatever it is. And get your weapon stocks, use the black. I've been using the black because of the way it runs out on the weapons and stuff. 15 millimeter. I mean, how fancy can you get? Yeah, didn't paint eyeballs. Some of the paratroopers had the camouflage netting and strands hanging out of their helmet. I might have used like one of the browns to discolor some of that stuff. But I think all in all, stuff come out pretty good for doing that with speed painters. The only thing that I have a question with here that I'm not satisfied with is the way the helmets came out. But, I mean, come on, the guys, they don't look too shabby. I think they're playable. Yeah, I know, I need to paint the bottom of my bases there, Brian. I'll do that. So, this is Hexy. This is my little stint with, throwing some paint using the speed paints to paint some World War II minis. Tell me what y'all think, if y'all have another solution or a better method. And be gentle. Remember, I'm a rookie at this, okay? But let me know other little combinations you all have come up with. All right, thanks for checking this out, and hey, we'll talk to y'all soon back on Hex Encounter. See you then.